Now, going over to the political part of the podcast, you have DeSantis claiming Trump might pick Nikki Haley for VP. And interestingly enough, DeSantis actually probably gets more positive comments here than any of his other tweets the whole year. Granted, the bar is quite low. Some might say lower than his high-heeled boots. But nevertheless, usually when you look at the DeSantis campaign and the DeSantis war room on the social media, it's usually 50-50, about 50-50 between 50% of people critiquing him and joking about him, and 50% agreeing him, giving him some positive accolades in the responses. And this case specifically is from the DeSantis war room, which I was saying, their marketing is the worst marketing on the planet, but at least they have a cute crocodile in the little Twitter handle, although debatably it might be an alligator. Truth be told, I can't tell the difference between the two emojis. I apologize. I will do a little studying over the weekend, perhaps. Now, they actually shared a video. Before the video, they did a little bbit of text. And this went pretty viral for the DeSantis campaign. Usually they'll get between maybe 120, 350,000 views on the Twitter. Or, as more and more people are starting to call it the X. Which, let me know in the comments. Do you still call it Twitter? Or are you full on board saying, I was on the X this weekend. I posted on the X this weekend. I read this on the X. I'd be fascinated to hear your anecdotal evidence in regard to my small anecdotal evidence with my circle of friends. Most of us are still calling it the Twitter, and unfortunately, it's a little disappointing. A couple of my friends, they don't say they tweet, but they do say they post, which, to me, tweet sounded always cooler. But nevertheless, now, the DeSantis forum said, and this is the text before the little video here, and they say, quote, breaking, asking twice if he would consider Nikki Haley, Democrat, South Carolina, as his vice president running mate. Donald Trump did not rule it out. Quote, I've always gotten along with Nikki, unquote. Reminder, Haley and Trump have together spent over $30 million in false negative TV ads against Ron DeSantis. Trump has spent zero against Haley, unquote. And this is a fun little, I don't know if it's fun, but it is a video about a minute and 39 seconds long. And without further ado, play that really quick.
Her daughter-in-law, Lara, said this week on Newsmax that she was asked, would you consider Nikki Haley as your running mate in 2024? And she said, never say never. Would you really consider Nikki Haley?
That's an interesting, I wouldn't, right now, I'm not even thinking about that. I've always gotten along with Nikki, but I think, what she did was, I would never run against the president. He was a great president and all of that. And then, a year, 2 years later, she just, I guess I'll run. And hasn't picked up much steam. They say surge, but the one that's surging is us, because I went up 10 points and she went up 3 and DeSantis went down. So that's not much of a surge, although it is a surge against him. He's doing very poorly, actually.
So never say never to picking Nikki as your running mate, or would you say never?
Well, look, I think it's unlikely because, it's one of those things. I think it's unlikely. We have some things in common and some things we don't have in common, and some of those things are pretty important. And we have, obviously, mine is a campaign of common sense. We want strong borders. We got to have our borders back. We have to have elections. We have to have a strong and powerful elections that are honest, as opposed to what we've had. We've had, we're like a third world country. We have things in common. We have things that I probably wouldn't agree with her very much on. But we have a lot of great candidates. That's one thing. I don't think about it too much, I have to tell you, but we have a lot of great candidates.
And again, this is probably one of the most popular feedback DeSantis has ever gotten. I say that because I did check out the first couple comments, and believe it or not, they weren't roasting DeSantis, as that's usually the norm. Granted, DeSantis has never been as bad as Chris Christie. Here on the show, we actually coined the term the Chris Christie effect, which is a mathematical phenomenon in which you get zero positive responses from your original tweet. Which again, presumably Chris Christie has family, friends, a campaign staff, and yet there are 2 times on the show where he scrolled all the way to the bottom of the comments and he didn't have one positive response, which is a fascinating phenomenon. I believe Nikki Haley came close to that once or twice, but no one has yet really passed Chris Christie in that regard. He has a big advantage, pun moderately intended. Now, let's go down the comments in this specific case, and again, it's specifically got 974,300 views. Now, interestingly enough, not a lot of love, not a lot of like. got 1.4 thousand likes, which actually, let's pull up the calculator here, because that might be a record for the least amount of likes, interestingly enough. So we're going to take that 1,000, and I know U.S. public schools are all-time low for testing in mathematics, science, history. Heck, the ACT scores are at a 32-year low, and yet the unions, those are teachers' unions, they say they deserve even more money. Right. Needless to say, we're going to actually provide more value right here, right now, than some public schools in the United States, which is actually kind of sad. So we're going to turn this into a percentage, folks. So 1,400 people like this. So 1,400 divided by 974,300. That gives us 0.001439. Now, let's turn it into a percentage. We're going to multiply that by 100. That gives us 0.14369. Or if we feel so inclined, we could round down to 0.14% of people who saw this post liked it. Which is, granted, it's not the Chris Christie effect. It's not that bad, but that's pretty darn low. Now, let's go to the comments and see what are the top comments. Scrolling down, one of the first comments comes from DeSantis War Room. They responded to their own post. But nevertheless, it did get 144 likes. They responded with a tweet from Rob Piners saying, quote, negative spending against Ron DeSantis passed 30 million after the latest 1 million ad buy from Nikki Haley's Super PAC SFP fund, which allocated $887,917 towards targeting DeSantis in Iowa and $155,350 boosting Haley in New Hampshire. Which, geez Louise, I sometimes forget how much copious amounts of money is put into marketing of candidates, which is almost also hilarious when you think Michael Bloomberg, he spent probably the most of any candidate, and yet his likability didn't go up in 1 iota. That's probably one of the best examples of money can't buy you everything in life. Well, many things, but not everything. Now, one of the first comments that isn't from the DeSantis campaign staff comes from Unfiltered Boss, and he says, quote, Magadonians will eat a turkey emoji sandwich if Trump makes them, and they will love it, unquote. I got 206 likes, which I'm not sure if that's so much as praising DeSantis or just hating on Trump, but it's not hating on DeSantis, which makes it a unique comment, needless to say. Scrolling down, someone by the name of TRM Manga Little Vessel says, quote, Trump told all of you that he was not going to make anyone in the current primary running to be his VP. You missed that one, apparently, unquote. That got 50 likes. Janie Curtin says, quote, I was curious, so I asked the Trump supporters commenting on a Trump War Room post what they thought. Let's just say many were not thrilled of the idea of a Haley-Trump package deal. It looks like she had a sample size of 67 votes, and the question for Trump voters, if Trump made Nikki Haley his VP pick, would you still vote for him? Of the 67 voters, 33% absolutely 100%, 10% said maybe, and 57% said no, she can't be trusted, unquote. And that comment by Janie Curtin got 66 likes. And yeah, I'd say this, again, it's a small sample size, but given what Nikki Haley stands for, her track record, her current talking points, there's just not a lot of really. Again, I'm not a doctor. However, if you click the subscribe button, it may help with my enunciation and my speech impediments. Maybe it will help in those ineptitudes. Again, there's very few certainties in life. Nothing's 100%. But if you click subscribe, it may very well assist in my goal to become a proficient, or at least moderately competent, speaker. And I appreciate the subscribe button as well. But again, with Nikki Haley, their ideals are so different. I don't suspect Trump would ever pick Nikki Haley. He's going to pick someone who is more, obviously, well, not obviously, I think he's going to pick someone who's more complimentary towards his ideals and more, I would say maybe a little bit more quote-unquote moderate, so he can gather more of those independent, middle-of-the-road voters when, again, he already has the people who love Trump. They love Trump. He's going to get those votes regardless. What he really needs to do is, very similar to why he chose Mike Pence, who was a nobody, or not nobody, he wasn't well-known or well-recognized before the election, but a lot of people think in some ways he rounded him out. Well, granted, Pence was a disappointment in many ways, but nevertheless, I think he'll pick someone who's a little bit more known in the limelight, probably. But who knows? I might be wrong. Maybe he'll pick Alex Jones to be the VP. Who knows? I mean, just for entertainment effect alone, that'd be highly amusing. Now, going back to the comments and away from my ADHD, or ADHD, as some might say, Bert Hatter says, quote, Nikki would serve the same purposes that Pence did to make Trump appear more conservative than he is. I'd be surprised if she took the job. I think she's smart enough to know that it's B to the end of her political career, just as it is B for Pence, unquote. Grammar be damned, that's how they wrote it. Sometimes it isn't my speaking aptitudes, sometimes it is how it was written. That did get 14 likes, though, however. Chris Topher says, quote, Nikki is always campaigning for VP anyways, getting 14 points, or 14 likes. Lulu Addict says, quote, if dear leader says Haley is okay, they'll swallow it, unquote, getting 41 likes. And a little disclaimer, this person does have an alligator in their profile little emoji name. So, probably a fan of DeSantis. Let's see here. Someone by the name of All American Dad, who gets an A+ for marketing since their picture is of the iconic Iwo Jima lifting the flag up, which is one of the most prolific pictures in U.S. history. Or, let's be honest, world history, because the U.S. is awesome like that. And All American Dad says, and he has an American flag emoji in his profile name. Oh, yeah, perfect. Now, he says, quote, even in questions about Nikki Haley, Trump shows his hand by changing subjects to Ron DeSantis. It's crystal clear who he sees as his biggest threat. Hashtag DeSantis for president. Unquote. I got 74 likes. And, I guess, excuse me, still getting over a little something here. I think it is fair to say, I don't think Trump sees anyone as a threat except DeSantis, because DeSantis, while he is shooting himself in the high-heeled boots more and more with his campaign, he is the one who is closest to Trump in the numbers. Granted, Trump is around 63%. DeSantis is already down to like 12.3% in the poll aggregators, which again, DeSantis started at like 30+%, which is almost a marketing phenomenon of ineptitudes. And again, we'll see if they're able to turn it around. Someone by the name of Lee Ritz says, quote, the whiplash from bird brain to potential VP is making my brain hurt, unquote, getting 40 likes. Let's see here. Continue to scroll down. Let's see. Susan says, quote, it's not going to be anyone on the Rhino debate stage, unquote. They got 4 likes. Tinfoil Baddie says, quote, he's not thinking about his VP. He knows he's going to prison, unquote, getting 10 likes. Robert Salvador says, quote, shocker, unquote, getting 6 likes. Let's see here. USA Trust Trump says, quote, we know that being at 7% has to hurt, unquote, getting 7 likes. Although, in full transparency, in the poll aggregators, DeSantis is around 12.3 to 12.6%, which, again, is still nothing compared to Trump, where Trump is at 63.2% in the poll aggregators. So, yeah, the delta is growing exponentially. And as you can continue to go down, Jerry Gray says, quote, Haley has always been running for VP, unquote, getting 7 likes. Let's see here. So interestingly enough, not so much pro DeSantis, but a lot of people just hating on Trump. So I don't know if this is a win for DeSantis, or maybe. I mean, this might help him in the polls a little bit. Let me know in the comments if you think this will be a net positive, net negative for the DeSantis campaign. But, I mean, I guess it is prudent for the DeSantis campaign to target the biggest targets that are close to him in the polls. Again, Nikki Haley is getting closer and closer around DeSantis. And again, DeSantis is going after Trump, of course, because Trump is way ahead of the polls. So it'll be interesting to see how this affects their numbers. But, as I always say, time shall tell. Thank you, everyone, again, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of December. So if you click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback on how I can make the show better. I am trying to enunciate more and slow down my rate of speech. However, it is a long-term thing I'm trying to fix, so I appreciate your patience. But the more you call out, the more I'll put focus on it, and I appreciate the feedback as we try to make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.